Hi, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbo333, and welcome back to Hard Time 4, New Order Last Days of Your Pass, Guangdong. In the last video, we done nearly got impeached. Which wasn't a huge surprise, honestly. But what are you going to do, really? Our fiscal health is not doing too hot, it would seem. I think we can open our economy. I think it started good, now it's down at intermediate, which, not the best, but we'll get there one day, hopefully. And, in the meanwhile, we're also working on the next product cycle, because even in political crisis and impeachment wars, innovation never stops. Oh, Jesus Christ, we got a lot of corruption, holy fuck. Well, here we are. Suzuki Taichi, lame duck chief executive. He gave himself a bitter smirk as he gazed through the office window one last time to the swirling mass of fluorescent lights littering the Goshu skyline. It had come to this. Gone was the gleaming, everlasting freighter of his dreams. In its place was now a slaughterhouse out of hell, with shrieking flames ravaging its exterior, and desperate screams of the damned Japanese, Zujin, and Chinese souls echoing within. Japanese believe in hell? I don't know why I thought about it, but now that I thought about it, I can't get it out of my head. Anyway, it didn't matter how many steel plates he had commissioned, how many course corrections he had undertaken. This fabled vessel of riches and promises had been alive from the start, just like the unsinkable ship of old. Suzuki Taichi, the man who failed Guangdong. Was this to be his legacy, his epitaph, even when none of his disasters befalling the jewel of southern China had been his direct doing? Is there nothing left safe from this bureaucrat's filthy clutches, nothing spared from the damnation to the deepest corners of Inferno, along with the demons of Yasuda? Even if he were to proclaim his innocence over and over, the guardians of Yomi would laugh and jeer, retorting to his face, "You've made enemies of too many." So, behind this dimly lit desk, he sat, wallowing in silent grief until a shrill ring interrupted his thoughts. On the other side of the line was Kaya Ikonori, muttering offerings of condolences and promises of a handsome position in Tokyo, worried to triumph over the other contendos for Ino's empty throne. Suzuki listened in silence, as an eerie feeling of serenity dawned upon him. He turned his head back to the now half-vacant chamber, and in dust-filled corner lay his trusty suitcase. A companion in his years in the army and House of Peers, and now in his last days on his burning freighter. A friend he thought he'd never have to turn to again. And so the captain abandoned his ship. The fallout of Yasuda Concern's collapse has spread beyond the Japanese metropole, as Guangdong chief executive Suzuki Taichi has resigned following a vote of no confidence in the Legislative Council. Suzuki, intimately connected with disgraced Ino administration, is believed to have been dependent upon Yasuda's support in maintaining power, particularly enacting the controversial revised labor standards ordinance. Incurring little support among Guangdong's traditional corporate power, Suzuki has been replaced with the caretaker chief executive Matsuzawa Tajuki, formerly regional head of Yasuda Bank. As its political turmoil in Tokyo continues, it's belief that Matsuzawa's permanent successor will hail from one of Guangdong's three remaining major companies. Tokyo shall not select our leaders again. Well, I'm just going to take a look at this real quick. This will increase police support. I really shouldn't be. I probably shouldn't worry about these until earlier on, but I do want to look a little bit because it's a nice new focus tree. Well, let's go ahead. Actually, I'll check my economy real quick. I should also just start my timer. It's probably a good idea. There we go. I'll check my poverty real quick because I know it said it was starting to hit or go up. Yeah, a little bit. And that's not the best, I'll be honest. But what are you going to do? Chief Executive Matsuzawa. The representative director of the ill-fated Yasuda conglomerate's Guangdong operation has been selected by his peers to serve as chief executive following Suzuki Taiichi's untimely return to Tokyo. With his patron gone and with his company on death's door, Matsuzawa has barely any capacity to pick up the task of administrating Guangdong spiraling into economic freefall. It's just how the tycoons want it. Clever. Well, here we are. Yasuda's last man. Every crisis lies great opportunity, so the Western saying goes. Unless you're Matsuzawa Takuji, in which case the mapped Eastern aphorism might be the carp on the cutting board. With Yasuda Bank being taken apart by its creditors, the political establishment in the media in Tokyo, Matsuzawa has had his hands simply putting the company's affairs in order in Guangdong. That is, until the former chief executive abandoned ship, with the remaining tycoons pushing the poison chalice into Matsuzawa's hands. With communications from Tokyo all but severed, Matsuzawa has not been formally appointed by the Japanese government to his position, nor does he have the luxury of waiting. The aftershock of Yasuda's collapse, the political turmoil in Tokyo, has left Guangdong's budget deep in the red, scaring investors even as the local populace turn to crime and vice to make up for lost wages. Remaining tycoons jockey for positions with honeyed words and convenient plans, no doubt aiming to become chief executive themselves once the dust clears. Although Matsuzawa savors the clarity of knowing that his assignment to Guangdong was the work of a corrupt cabal working against him, the fallout from their schemes has led to his entire life's work crumbling to dust around them. There's no coming back from this, no matter how innocent he was. He's a dead man walking, and all he can do is keep it together until the curtains close. I think these are all new, but I also don't have much time left before I should be heading out personally on my end. So I'll probably save reading the rest of these off for next time, as well as some more usual lore stuff that I like to do. We welcome our new chief executive, he who holds the poisoned chalice. You know, I would have missed a snake, mused Ibuka Masaru, whose usual sneer haggling in the corner of his mouth, if it hadn't been for the mess of legislation he left behind. He, Akio, and Mihi, Morita, and Matsushita were nestled in their black leather sofas once more, inside the former nerve center of the Guangdong Civil Authority, vacated overnight without trace. Urgent matter in Tokyo read the official statement for Suzuki's departure, yet it was painfully clear to the three tycoons that the whole thing was built but a glorified resignation letter. You don't want to talk, hissed Morita, eyes on the floor, voice dripping with fury. Any idea on how to fix the riots in your sweatshops? Seems like our great visionary can't weasel himself out of this one, can he? Nothing will come out of this if all we do is bicker at each other. Grimaced Matsushita, eyeballs dancing from one fellow tycoon to the other. Neither of you would want to buck up for once and take up the mantle, I assume? Because we'll have to nominate a caretaker to clean up Suzuki's hot mess, at least for the time being. The less likely our candidate would try anything funny on our watch, the better. Matsushita's eyes shot to the door. The other two followed his stare to see Matsuzawa Takuji, having just barged into the assembly, still recovering his breath. The predatory intent in their eyes didn't escape Matsuzawa. I'd like to remind you, Yasuda's leftover assets must be dealt with before... Fret not, Mr. Matsuzawa. The grimness in Matsushita's voice evaporated as a smile crept back onto his face. I assure you everything will be duly arranged. Buka grinned and Morita kept silent, as Hand of Fate pushed Matsuzawa Takuji towards the Forsaken Helm. We welcome our new commander. This guy's fucked. He is fucked. He is up fucked creek without a condom. Jet engines, I guess? I don't know. I do not want to add to more corruption. Finish stuff, okay. The Seatwarmer crisis has hit small buildings across Guangdong like a speeding bullet train, killing a lot and crippling most. Nintendo is no exception to this sudden and painful crisis, barely hanging on thanks to the will of its loyal employees. But the sheer will can only get you so far until you have to face the real world. And Yamauchi Hiroshi was doing just that. Late night at his office, Yamauchi was tiredly sifting through countless piles of documents and financial records to assess just how bad the damage to Nintendo was. Yamauchi was a stern man, but here he found himself on the verge of collapse from the sheer stress and intensity in his company had to face. Fighting back through tears, Yamauchi bitterly took off his glasses, throwing them onto the floor and slamming his desk. He rubbed his face and thought about all the commitments he had already made to his employees, their families, and to his clients. He had thought about the now exorbitant price of instant rice that he had been subsiding off of, rather than actual meals. He thought of the lack of progress Nintendo was making and just how the sheer direness of it was. Then he thought about giving up, of leaving Guangdong and abandoning this ill-fated venture. He thought about going home and just being content with a meager life as a lawyer. Even though it was just a momentary thought, it made him angry. Why should he give up? Why should he go home? He'd already gotten this far, and he had no intention of failing the commitments he had made. He got up his chair and retrieved his glasses from the floor, as well as the papers that had been scattered around him from this outburst. He neatly arranged them and all upon his desk, and composed himself. Yamauchi inhaled. Nintendo. Leave luck to heaven, he exhaled. Very quickly he was back to work, resolute that he would not give up so easily in the face of adversity. A new start once more. File more skilled engineers to improve the quality. I think I will do that. And when we can start dismantling Yasuda. What struck Matsuzawa about the chief executive's office was not the sweeping view of Koshu and the Pearl River, but the paper. Suzuki's unfinished business, now his, was stacked in towering heaps of paper, planted haphazardly on the desk, the coffee table, and the floor. A miniature skyscraper had taken root, threatening to collapse from a misplaced footer and errant arm. Matsushita, Ubuka, and Morita hadn't done anything to level or reduce amounts of paperwork, which said plenty about their intentions, Matsuzawa thought bitterly. After gingerly wading through his office, Matsuzawa eased himself into the seat behind the desk. He could barely see the door behind the cliffs of paper, closing him from the world. Minutes passed. Where could he start? Dragged from the burning ruins of Yasuda one morning, only to have the chief executive's duties thrust upon him with no warning, Matsuzawa's world spun as he remembered Yasuda. That would have to be dealt with too. There's simply too much to do for one person in one lifetime. That's exactly what the bastards want, isn't it? Matsuzawa growled. No doubt the remaining tycoons were chasing profit and seeking advantage for when the dust settled, and the less the chief executive interfered, the better. But Matsuzawa was neither too kind nor too helpless to let his rivals dictate the terms of his exit. If his fortunes were to be tied to Yasuda's, then it would be on his terms. Ensure Guangdong would survive, however it must, so as to prove to his benefactor that he was worth saving. Prioritize these files. We'll be here all night if we have to. Well, we'll do next in appointment. The haste of Suzuki Taichi's departure as chief executive has left a great deal of work unfinished, with hardly any process for handing over the responsibilities involved. The demands of a new chief executive's position present a steep learning curve, and although Matsuzawa was closer to Suzuki than anyone else of Guangdong's tycoons, rumors already started, perhaps from among the tycoons himself, that he's enough for the job. That sometime around the line, a more permanent chief executive should preside over Guangdong's affairs. Very interesting, isn't it? My understanding, I think something new popped up. We could strike at the underworld, but we don't have the PP for that. Oh, there we go. Suzuki's accession. It's too close to tell who shall hold the position of chief executive. Do free military factories. Oh, no anti-air. Why not? I don't really have... I don't really have much to spare over for this, it seems. Chokai. We'll do an unenviable position. First, Yasuda went underwater, imploding on itself and taking the entire Co-Prosperity Spear's economy along with it. Then Suzuki fell from grace in Guangdong and was recalled to greener political pastures in Tokyo, leaving behind a mountain of troubles for his hamstrung successor. It's already a job that nobody wants, and thus Matsuzawa, already a dead man walking following the collapse of Yasuda, is the right man for the job. But even in his supremely weakened state, Matsuzawa still needs to find a way to convince people to work with him. To the new chief executive, Masaru raised his cup to Matsushita's, laughing uproariously. To Matsuzawa's health and good fortune, because he surely has none. At the risk of being impolite, good riddance. Matsushita smiled faintly, though he contented himself with a sip of sake where Ibuka drained his cup in a single gulp. Even as Japan and the Spear's economy crashed to earth, removed from the tier of their mutual rivals, the overbearing Suzuki and the overconfident Matsuzawa was all absolutely worth celebrating. Matsuzawa will be too busy digging himself out of the hole Suzuki left him to do anything too fancy. And once Yasuda's put down, Matsuzawa loses any relevance. Now's the perfect time to put our houses in order. To restructure, reorient, reprioritize. The future waits for nobody, and I intend to be ready for it. You say that as if you expect that future to be yours for the taking. Ibuka's face tightened, his mirth dissipating instantly. I'm sure the Legislative Council will be the final judge of that. But they like winners above anything else. I'm sure you understand. The two men looked at each other before laughing and raising their cups again. The friendly competition. Nothing but nonsense, surely. We're doing better overall than Guangdong, which is nice to see. Or not Guangdong, we are Guangdong. We're doing better than Manchukuo, it seems. What we're improving in was equality. Product quality is already great, so we need to market. Unenviable position. These are underworld contacts, I think. And Guangdong in the red. Most immediate pressing concern is that, with our regular sources of budget supply cut from Tokyo, Guangdong's fiscal situation is careening towards insolvency at a breakneck speed. Time lost from the removal of Suzuki from the chief executive's position has only intensified these trends. Should the situation worsen any further, we could see a general investor route from Guangdong, a death spiral from which we can never recover. We must choose whose lot lives and who dies in Guangdong. Not everyone can be saved, and we will simply have to demand the unlucky may suffer what they must. There is no other choice. I think I'm going to have to choose here. It's propping up expats. I think I might end up going for Marita's plan. I don't know what it is, but I might just go ahead and do that. Does anyone have an edge right now? It's about even if Yasuda or Fujitsu. What they did to Matsuzawa was beyond vicious. Morita Aikyo declared, his hand still shaking and even in the safety of Sony's headquarters in Hong Kong. You see his corpse is still warm, and they forced the chief executive's job on him. Next time they could come after us. That quickly? Li Ka-shing pinched the bridge of his nose, holding his square hair glasses in his free hand. What's their endgame? It's 2 against 1 now. I've always been the odd ones out. Things only get worse from here. Book and Matsushita can't have thought this all the way through. They'll be fighting each other in order to seek Matsuzawa. It's an opportunity at Akio. One we better not pass up. I don't look forward to facing investors as external secretary, but it's the closest of chief executive seat we've ever gotten. If I can make myself indispensable to Matsuzawa, we'll be seen as more reliable than either Matsushita or Fujitsu. That's more like it. I'll talk to our suppliers and customers to get the word out. Start putting Ledco's feet to the fire. Stanley Ho, too. We'll need him. This is our best chance to make it big, Akio. What do we have to lose? Everything, Morita thought, briefly, but that was business as usual. But this time, they could win. The night air was uncharacteristically warm as it wafted through the windows of Gia's apartment, like an unwanted house guest from which had just spied the prized silverware. Gia picked up the fan from the corner of the desk and began waving it back and forth, not removing his gaze from the telephone for a second. All was quiet, save for the occasional creak of furniture, the passing of taxis down below, making their nightly prowls. He, meanwhile, continued to wait. Unable to bear the perpetual inertness, he fumbled for a pack of cigarettes and walked over to the window. The light of the moon bathed the top of his face, forcibly preventing him from reaching the bottom by a wellspring of neon. Across from him, the window railings were locked in the delicate but fatal embrace between iron and oxygen. Electricity poured through the ground floors below, forming the shapes of proclamations and commandments. However, it was now far past last call. The taxis and flitting shadows at the street's edge provided the only clues to continuity of human existence. Put the cigarette to his lips. The phone rang. Gia cursed and went to lift the receiver's ear. Hello? Our friends are making a drop-off at Takshing Street in an hour. 2 trucks and a car, maybe 4 men. Disguised as routine delivery. You know what to do. This was it, then. He stretches his arms forward, looking at an intricate set of tattoos, then reaches for his pistol. Another day at the office. God, everyone fucking hates us right now. Our support is not increasing, it's just... It's hemorrhaging. Not hemorrhaging, but not doing well. I shouldn't exaggerate too much. How we doing? Chile is falling apart. Takagi elected Prime Minister of Japan. That's interesting. Railways. Let's do infrastructure. I guess. I don't really know if we need to. There's a hospital in Momai, so I think we'll do a round of infrastructure and then a hospital in Momai. I think that's what we'll do. Next, let's do Suzuki's ill-willed triumph for now. Chief Executive Suzuki spent much of his time in the office attempting to pass legislation to enact working condition reforms. Though the bills brought him great attention, they are now a burden for business as we operate in and throughout the Pearl River Delta. Simply put, the cost are too high. It is undesirable that we hinder the performance of corporations, hiring, manufacturing, and selling Guangdong, lest we flee elsewhere in search of profits. Something must be done before we are reduced to rags, because we idolize out-of-date laws and regulations. Matsuzawa set aside the final ledger on his desk, blinking hesitantly to stop his eyes from drying out under the glare of his desk lamp. Guangdong's finances were an utter disaster. The budget was utterly outdated, bleeding red ink, even as the coffers were nearly drained dry. Every day Matsuzawa spent orienting himself were days lost in the fight to stabilize the ship of state. Matsuzawa stood up and wearily dragged himself to the window, pressing his forehead against the cool glass as he surveyed the flickering lights of the city on life support. There would be no time for grand speeches before the Legislative Council. There would only be a desperate scramble to pull Guangdong out of freefall, to save whoever could be saved. It was all that mattered. Guangdong could still be saved, even if Yasuda could not. Triage would be the name of the game. Marina and Buka had been arguing for hours on end over whether to funnel what little emergency budget remained to reassure the workforce or to stabilize the companies. Matsushita played referee. All three of them looked at Matsuzawa to take responsibility and act in a scheme to be successor. Matsuzawa smiled wanly. To be needed, even as a fallen man, was to have some measure of power, of control. It could gladly leave Yasuda's management to his deputy and its fate to incompetent superiors in Tokyo. Yet here, he could still make a difference. We throw in with Marita. We are nothing without workers. Ooh. Brilliant news from engineers and executives of Guangdong today, as great new computer products have been released from the fiscal year. These devices hold a great amount of processing power. We're also taking up less physical space than last generation of computers. With these developments, computing will surely become a common fixture in every area of society, both in Guangdong and across the sphere. These ones don't make that sound anymore. I'm curious about this. Damaging. What does that mean, damaging, in this context? Would that damage his odds at winning, I wonder? Chief Executive Matsuzawa Takuji let the headlines from Tokyo sink in as he sipped his morning tea, digesting the political news in Japan in the quiet morning before work. do much in approval. I was going to see if we could finesse something, but never mind. Prime Minister Takagi Sokichi, the former admiral, had, despite the odds, bested the political operators' invested interest in the YSK. It seemed impossible to imagine only months ago when the establishment's stranglehold on power seemed absolute. And again, no one thought Yasuda wouldn't blow back then either. The new PM's speeches struck all the right notes, reigniting economic cooperation, investing in Kyokian economic development codes, breaking the Zaibatsu stranglehold on the economy, all of which bode well for Guangdong so long as Japan didn't look too closely at the power accumulated by Guangdong's leading tycoons. But Guangdong had never merited such attention from Tokyo, not until Suzuki's term as chief executive. Suzuki was no longer a factor. Hell, if Japan was embracing liberalization, then Guangdong and its experience in non-interventionism might even be a model worth emulating. If Matsuzawa was spun the story right, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. This actually works well for us, I think. We're maxed out in Chinese support, it seems. The first sign of how things were different was a police cordon. A gaggle of officers herding the Kahin Maru's occupants to a holding center of shipping containers, steel prefabs, and worn tarps, a prison in all but name. Where the Yasukawas had once been discreetly whisked away by a limousine, here they disembarked amongst a horde of destitute Japanese salarymen, housewives, and children, shuffling forward as the Chinese dock workers sneaked glances of withering contempt. A few brave yelled profanities in a language Japanese didn't understand, but each ward bowed their shoulders further in shame. Yasukawas were finally marched in front of a beleaguered officer who recited questions in tired accented Japanese. Papers, please. Where were they from? What was their business? The Baron blustered of his familiarity with Executive Suzuki. To that the officer cracked a cold smile, before looking at Yoshiko warily. She wished she could disappear into the shadows of a checkpoint, embarrassed. The officer's demeanor changed as he examined their trunks, quickly undoing their paltry attempt to hide what funds they had left. After a short silence, the officer took a thin stack of bills, 1,000 yen, and closed the trunk. I suggest you find a hotel in the city. Tonight. It's not safe here. The officer stamped the Yasukawa's passports, clearing them to enter Koshu. He didn't return the bills he had taken. When Yoshiko opened her mouth to protest, her father had quickly pulled her out of the checkpoint, and Yoshiko had seen enough to grasp why. We are not welcome here. Oh, Jesus. Fuck, man. Chukwo is fucked right now. Granted, we're not doing much better, but could sacrifice some research dev for quality, though we're not going to have enough time to do that. And for it to matter, at least. Anything that can give me another 10. Fodder quality. Force overtime for engineers. That might get us up to another. No matter how we crunch the numbers or rationalize expenses, Executive Matsuzawa cannot escape the gravity of Guangdong's budget all-consuming and seemingly bottomless. There could be no talk of saving anything in Guangdong without addressing the elephant in the room, the RLSO. In better times, Suzuki's sole achievement had made eminent sense, to offer carrot while wielding the stick, especially when Guangdong's police were woefully inadequate to do the latter. Matsuzawa had seen how much Suzuki had spent to secure his legacy. Legislative victory. There simply wasn't enough to enforce what was on the books. Was Suzuki wrong, though? Matsuzawa idly tapped his fountain pen against the draft proposal to delay the RSLO's provisions. Even the immediate circumstances had changed, the fundamentals had not. When the economy recovered, there would be time and money enough for Suzuki's last words to be honored. Bukan agreed. When has he ever? Assuming a return of normalcy is a fool's mistake, he'd argue. Adapt or die. Surely the end of his suit has taught you that much. Those words had come with a proposal to repeal Suzuki's act entirely, to redirect funds to more productive uses, or so it said. The irony of Buka's adaptation looked entirely like how Guangdong had operated before did not escape Matsuzawa. Suzuki's legacy would not escape him. Next, I guess we're doing the Morita plan. Morita Akio of Sony has proposed that we rethink the circumstances we find ourselves in order to secure Guangdong that can welcome back Japanese investment in orders at a rapid clip. Once we see the crisis ends, the government should focus on its efforts at mitigating the harms of a current crisis in Guangdong's workers and smaller businesses. In other words, helping the Chinese and Zhejiang weather the storm. We can't save all of them, but we can convince them to grit their teeth and hang on with promises of a better future. Well, maybe we can. Jamaica has declared independence. Interesting. I'm not going to touch the products anymore. I think we'll just let it ship. You look well, Chief Executive. Morita Akio said stiffly, hiding his surprise at the cleanliness of Matsuzawa's office. Last time he'd been here, Matsuzawa had been left facing a forest of papers, and he'd gone through it all. Everything. The offered tea, the vacuum carpet, the reasonably empty desk showcased a man back in control. Thank you, Matsuzawa replied, flipping through a report. Morita's proposal saved the Zhejiang businesses and Chinese workers most impacted by the fallout we see its demise. That plan is crucial for Guangdong. Our success is fueled by subcontractors and employees, none of which can survive. Stop. I know what you wrote, but I'm not convinced. What do we gain by throwing the workers a bone? Isn't this just your sidekick Lee and his bleeding heart talking through you? Morita took a deep breath before replying. Endlessly squeezing the Chinese, who outnumber us, just paints a bigger target on our backs. Suzuki thought so too. Suzuki's profligacy, what the fuck is that word, also caused some of our issues. But his conclusions were correct. The status quo is unsustainable. Matsuzawa. Dismiss that because Suzuki's other failings will be utterly short-sighted. It is time for something new. Well, we'll see that something new next time, my friends, because right now, I'm going to cut it here. Thank you guys for watching, however. Like what you like. Not feel free to dislike. Yeah. Hit the sub button if you want to keep up to date with uploads. Leave any comments if you have any in the comment section below. And check my various links down in the description box below. That's really it for now, my friends. I thank you for watching, though. My name has been Mr. Dogbot333. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.